Hello there, everybody. Welcome to the What Culture Football Podcast, the podcast produced by What Culture that is predominantly about football. To my left, and indeed your right, you will see that I am joined by Andy Murray.
Hi.
Yep, no surprise there. But to my right, and indeed your left, good goddamn and other such phrases, it's only Jamie Bloody Kennedy.
Excited to be here, even more so because we're talking about Scotch football.
Who invited you?
I just turned up. No
Well-
one. The answer to your question is no one.
Well, we're glad to have you. We've got two people who can actually talk about Scottish football, so that's what we're going to do. There is another season of, as we dub it in the office, the great shame of British football returning to our televisions and our lives in the coming weeks. So we're going to preview all the interesting parts and probably a lot of the not interesting parts as well. I will clarify before we start. Jamie, would you like to declare that you're a Rangers fan?
I would like to go on record and say that yes, I am a Rangers fan.
And Andy?
I'm an Aberdeen fan, as people who watch this might already know.
And for my sins, I do occasionally follow Hibs when time and space and patience and mood allows. So yes, we'll crack straight in. The big question, I'm sure everybody watching, whether or not they follow Scottish football or not, is there any possibility this season it's not just going to be another Celtic title win? Any chance at all?
There's a stronger possibility than there was last season. Celtic have employed Neil Lennon full-time.
Yes.
Neil Lennon.
Yes.
Who's a fine momentum manager to keep you moving forward and when things are already going well. But across the course of a season, I don't know. That being said, I still think the Celtic squad is a little bit stronger as a whole. Rangers have strengthened, as we'll talk about, and so forth. But gut still says Celtic, maybe by a smaller margin than last season. But
Here's the thing. Right?
Yes.
Now, I might be wearing green today, and don't worry, I'm not going to tear this off Hulk Hogan style.
I would have been up for that.
I don't have blue chest hair under here or anything, red, white, and blue. But I will say this: you're 100% bang on the money because, and I'm not a popular man. Honestly, amongst fellow Rangers fans, it's not a popular opinion. But the fact is, until such times as someone beats Celtic for the title, they are the benchmark, and that's just the way it is. So, all things considered, I do agree with another thing you said. Rangers do look better. They are shaping up. I think second season for Steven Gerrard. It's going to be an interesting one. Hopefully, from my point of view, we can do it. But until such times as we do, Celtic are the champions, in my opinion. So,
How did Gerrard, from a Rangers perspective, how has Gerrard done there? Because I think with such a high-profile manager going to Rangers of all clubs, I mean, there was talk about him getting the Liverpool job itself not all that very long ago. Yeah. When he went to Rangers, I think a lot of people were quite sniffy about him. Like, the Scottish League for Theresa May's brave boy Steven Gerrard.
it went the same way as well, because in the Scottish League there was a lot of, well, this guy's only getting the job because he's a big name and so forth.
Yeah.
So it's
and also as well, Rangers were on their knees. When Gerrard came in, before that, we had basically a guy who collected 5 tokens from cereal packets and became the manager, Graham Murray.
That's how I got this job as well.
And before that, we had a guy Pedro Caixinha, his name was picked out of a hat as well. So from our perspective, because Gerrard, whether it was his first job in management or not, because he's such a high-profile player, Rangers fans were excited because we knew it couldn't be any worse. That was really all it was last season. So everything we achieved last season, which I'm sure you'll point out, Andy, was nothing. Everything we achieved, group stage of the Europa League, you knocked us out all the cups, etc. Couldn't pip Celtic for the title. I don't think anyone expected it. Second season is going to be a challenge because now there's expectation.
Well, given where Celtic are, the benchmark, the realistic expectations for any team in Scotland last season was finish as high up the league as you can, maybe have a bit of run in the cups, but Celtic swept the board for not the first
treble.
So realistically, obviously you couldn't get the trophy because Celtic are there, you couldn't get the league because Celtic are there. Just in the sort of context of that, did he do well last season? Is second by 9 points, however it was, and going out the cups where you did in the group stage Europa League, was it still a good season in that context?
Well, I enjoyed it. I had way more good memories from last season, or have way more good memories from last season than I did the previous number, because I remember it wasn't that long ago that I was actually going to games with my dad and we were effectively watching from a hedge. You know, it was like Brechin, and no offence to those clubs either, but it was very sad times for someone like myself who'd grown up through the 90s and all the rest of it. Another point I'd like to say, though, is I do believe that as much as Rangers want to look up the way towards Celtic, I'm not entirely sure. And I might, again, be unpopular with some Rangers fans, but the fact is, to me, that we're not over that period of having tough games against Aberdeen's, Kilmarnock's, Hibs, etc. Because I think there's much of muchness about a lot of these clubs. Rangers haven't. If Celtic are up here, maybe Rangers, Aberdeen are level, and then Kilmarnock maybe slightly below that after recent developments.
Yeah, they've had an interesting summer.
Certainly have.
Realistically, other than Rangers, who would you say is the sort of most likely to make a bit of a noise next season?
I don't think there is anyone, to be honest. Like, I'm an Aberdeen fan, obviously. We had a very regressive season last year. We took a few steps back. A lot of growing dissatisfaction among the fan base with regards to the style of football that Derek McInnes plays, which is not pretty, to be very diplomatic about it. I don't think with the old firm can mount a serious challenge. I do think that Aberdeen will fare better than last season. I think that Kilmarnock will drop off. Kilmarnock, I mean, can we just appreciate Kilmarnock's terrible summer for a second?
It's fantastic.
They lose Steve Clarke, best manager of the best season they've had in decades. They lose Steve Clarke. They employ this Angelo Alessio guy, long-time assistant to Antonio Conte. He's been at Juve, Chelsea, Italy. Great appointment.
Sounds like Ian Cathro.
So it seems. And then they get put out of the Europa League by Connors Key, who needed penalties to beat Edinburgh City in the Challenge Cup last year. So I think Kilmarnock have regressed. I do think Aberdeen have improved considerably. I think we've had a good transfer window. Graham Shinney is a massive loss. Gary Mackay-Steven to a lesser level. Very creative, exciting player. Very inconsistent player. Funso Ojo's an interesting signing. He's got a hilarious name.
Not the only one who had a hilarious name this season. We will get back to the transfers in a minute, but I think Celtic might just pip you for
I think you're right there. It's the first time for Aberdeen have had a midfielder who looks like he can put a foot on the ball and pick a pass, read the game since Ryan Jack left for Rangers, which is encouraging. He also conceded a penalty in his debut, so he could be big box office as well. And then Craig Bryson, I think we have a like-for-like replacement for Graham Shinney, albeit a bit older. I think with guys like Ryan Hedges and John Gallagher coming in as well, Aberdeen will have a bit more flair. A few more options to cut people up rather than just playing this hoofball up to Sam Cosgrove's massive bunce, which is very effective. But no, I think we'll finish third. I think Rangers will... it's hard to tell because the gap between Aberdeen and Rangers was very well pronounced last season. I do think both sides have improved. Personally, I think a lot will depend on what happens with Steven Gerrard because I think he's done a good job at Rangers, improved throughout the season, showed that he could implement plan Bs when things weren't going his way and so forth. But if he continues to do quite well, I think English clubs might take a more closer look at him. Maybe, yeah. Someone might go, hey, man, we'll double your wages.
You bring up Sam Cosgrove there.
Yes,
one of the league's top scorers last season, but of course the top scorer in the league was...
Alfredo. Say it twice.
Now,
say it 3 times.
18 goals last season is not to be sniffed at, especially in the SPFL. But there is talk of him going. How much of a... I mean, look, he's got his problem. The 3 matches I watched of Rangers last year, he got sent off in. Like, all 3. I watched all 3 of them with you as well. He got sent off in every single one of them.
He's the most entertaining player in world football.
Oh, he was absolutely fantastic.
He's great.
If he walks, how easy is it to replace that in the side? And if you don't, surely that's... Your Aberdeens and your Kilmarnocks and your Hibs and your Hearts are looking a lot closer to Rangers.
Steven Gerrard said recently that there's no chance, unless obviously this extraordinary bid, and I don't know what that would be. There's talk of, recently there was some Chinese club bid 30 million and 10 million tax-free wages per year, and he turned it down. Didn't happen. Right? It didn't happen. Like, it wouldn't happen in Scottish football, full stop. It's certainly not happening with this Rangers setup at the minute. I would say that, well, what I was going to say is Gerrard, basically, if Morelos goes in this transfer window, he's irreplaceable. Because it's late on, or it's getting late on.
Left.
Plus, for us to replace him, we're going to have to spend 10, 15 million. We don't have that to spend. So we got him for less than $1 million or there and thereabouts from Helsinki. He's been a rip-roaring success, even though he's a hothead and he does cost us in bigger games, but he's still our top scorer. For my money, even though guys like Joe Aribo coming in from Charlton and players like that, they look quite solid, Morelos is still Rangers' best player. I don't think they can afford to lose him.
The best player?
I would say so, yeah.
Wow. Is that kind of why he doesn't really get... the hammer brought down on him too much in this situation?
Yeah, he's a phenomenal goal scorer. Like, that's why I say he's the most entertaining player maybe in the entire world, because he'll either score 2 or 3, or he'll get himself sent off, or he'll get wound up by someone. That I think, like, from my perspective, the thing about Morelos, even if he sticks around, is that at this point, opposition players know how to get inside his head. If he's playing against someone like a Scott Brown or a Scott McKenna, they're going to be fannies to get him sent off. And you know, there was a lot of talk last season about him being singled out, and he absolutely is. He's probably the most picked on, because they know there's something to exploit. So even if he sticks around, obviously, there's a balancing act there with Morelos. But at the same time, he's still, 23 years old?
Still very young, yeah.
It could calm his tits a little bit, but...
Now, you both said your respective clubs have improved. Now, Celtic have obviously spent the only real money of this window. They went out and got Christophe Julien for 7 million, which in SPFL terms that's pretty good. That's pretty big money.
Lot, yeah.
It's a lot of good money. And also Bolly
Bolingoli.
The two.
That 3 times.
Is it? Can you make a case that either of those sides have improved more than Celtic have, or will they have, if anything, opened the gap?
I don't think Celtic have improved at all, to be honest.
I agree.
I've not seen this Luka Connell play. The reports I've heard of this Hatem Abd El Hamed is that I think he's 29 years old. He's only been capped by Israel once. It doesn't exactly have a glistening record, doesn't exactly fill me with hope. This Julien, well, it said that he has quite a bit of quality on the ball, and Celtic will need that if they're to play Lennon's free at the back. He's 6'5" and very, very slow. That's not going to be good when you're up there on a cold Tuesday night in Pittodrie and we're pinging long balls over the top to Niall McGinn. And Bolignoli might be one of the biggest box office players this season. He could be brilliant or terrible. I've seen some couple of clips of him so far. He loves getting forward. He doesn't go down the wing when he goes forward. He cuts inside, leaving a massive hole all the way at the back. So I've no idea how that's going to pan out, but I don't think they've strengthened. And if they lose Tierney and or McGregor, trouble.
Tierney's the big certainly from the Premier League side of this. Tierney's been the big story in the SPFL this summer. Arsenal keep going back with what appears to me to be, look, everybody, we tried to sign transfer offers.
Very Newcastle, isn't it?
Yeah, but the money being put on the table is probably still unturned downable from Celtic's perspective, even if it is lower than their actual valuation of him.
It's a tough one.
Given that he's, and I hate to say this, my dad played right back, even though he's just a full back. You know what I mean? It's a replaceable position. You know what I mean? Your left back goes, all of a sudden you're not going to be conceding 20 extra goals a season, or you're not short an 18-goal striker. Should they just take that money, whatever it ends up being? It's 25 million for, in a league where that's probably more than all the other transfers and wages combined.
The thing is, like, I kind of agree with Neil Lennon on this, right? If Aaron Wan-Bissaka, who is proven, at Crystal Palace, hasn't played Champions League games and so forth, is valued at 50 million, why is Kieran Tierney only valued at 25? Now, the answer to that is that he's playing in the SPFL against Matty Kennedy and Johnny Hayes. And, well, he's not playing against Johnny Hayes. They play in the same team, but you know what I mean?
Does every day.
Well, yeah, in training. So, he's not tested at the same level, but, it is a really hard sum to turn down. I do believe that as the deadline creeps closer, Celtic will just go, you know what? We'll take this money, but that would be a huge.
I think for me, the fee comes down to it's the Wilfred Zaha argument. Wilfred Zaha's not worth £100 million, but if Crystal Palace want to go out and spend money to replace exactly what he brought to the side, probably is going to cost them about that.
Bolignoli, mate.
Well, exactly. Because I think Celtic go out and want to replace what Kieran Tierney brings to the side, they might do it for undisclosed, free, or £350,000.
6-month loan.
It's a difficult one because you don't want to see the best players leave the league, but does Kieran Tierney need to leave Scotland? I think if you look at Andrew Robertson, it's hard to say no.
That's true. For me, it'll be interesting to see what you think of this, Andy, as well. Obviously, I'm biased, right? I'm going to put my hand up and say I am 100% biased. But he, for my money, has been one of the best fullbacks, if not the best fullback. I know a lot of people talk about James Tavernier with Rangers, more assists, more goals, etc. But in terms of pure defending, because Tavernier can't really defend.
Yes, we've discussed this at great length. Yes,
posted missing constantly, only because he pushes so far up the park. But anyway, I digress. Tierney is a much more accomplished defender and younger. He might be injury prone. That's been an argument levied against him. And there's also this discussion about whether or not he can hack it in the much more physical English Premiership. But I think Arsenal should get him. I think they should just drop 25 million because it's what you're saying about Aaron Wan-Bissaka. If they want a kind of similar young fullback or whatever, from the Premier League, they're going to have to drop, 40, 50 million?
Mm.
They could get it cut price 25 million. If it doesn't work, the way English football is, 25 million's not actually a gamble.
No.
So,
No, it's not.
It's a drop in the ocean. Yeah, I think they should absolutely take a chance on him. And like, if he wants to develop, if he wants to become the best player he possibly can be, he does need to go. He needs to play against better players. Can't be playing against St. Mirren every week. You need to go down there and see what you can do. And I'd love to see it.
I'll get back to Celtic very briefly at the end. Any other teams in this league you can see making a bit of noise? Your Kilmarnocks, your Hibs, your Hearts.
Going to make you very happy and say Hibernian.
Are you actually?
Yeah, I think Paul Heckingbottom came in and did a tremendous job last season when Neil Lennon left under a mire of controversy that we can't comment on. 10 matches undefeated. I believe when he came in, they lost the last 3, but they were playing some heavy hitters and so forth. I think they've done good business this summer as well. They've lost Omayonga in midfield, who looked tremendous, gone back to Genoa, I think. But they brought in Scott Allen, who, going by recent cup performances, is still really good. Really, really good.
They keep losing players to Sunderland as well, which as a direct annoyance to me seems really, really deliberate.
So I think he'll certainly help bring out the best in your inconsistent frontman, Florian Camberi, who's tremendous, but really, really,
they
really
played
inconsistent.
Newcastle earlier the week in pre-season, and for the first 20 minutes, well, it was hard to decide whether or not Hibernian looked really good and polished and coherent, or whether or not Newcastle were just all over the place. In the end, it was 3-1. It could have been 5-6, 7-1 realistically if Newcastle put them away, but they looked good, they looked strong, they looked quick. They looked technically no match for Newcastle United, but they didn't look physically or certainly in terms of guile or commitment. They looked as if they were bang up for it. So I've seen Hibs sides that wilt very, very easily in games. So this is a stronger, more resolved team. Could see them doing something. I don't know about getting in front of Kilmarnock or Aberdeen this year necessarily.
I think Kilmarnock are going to drop off huge. Yeah. They've only signed 2 players. Like this goalkeeper they've got on loan from Juventus looks like a bomb scare. Connor's key again, lol. I think they're dead.
I just think this Italian appointment it reeked of disaster from day one to me, because Steve Clarke, he put this Kilmarnock team together who were so hard to beat. They played to their strengths. They got fans excited. They had like Jordan Jones, who Rangers have just taken away from them. Very happy about that. But that's again, I digress. I'm sorry. I'm ruining this podcast by being a fanboy. But anyway, back to Kilmarnock. Steve Clarke got that team firing all cylinders. They were very hard to beat. I get the feeling this is Pedro Caixinha at Rangers, but at Kilmarnock. That's how I see it. I think that this Italian appointment is a disaster, and I really believe that Kilmarnock could end up finishing outside the top 6.
Yeah,
This
totally.
Wow. Speaking of outside the
couldn't
top
agree more.
6,
Yeah, Livingston.
who's going down?
Livingston are going down.
Livingston are going down.
It surprised a lot of people last season as this very tight, well-drilled, well-organised team. Bolstered by 3 of the best centre-halves in the league, Craig Halkett, Declan Gallagher and Alan Lithgow.
Well, I've got to say, as you bring that up, as I was printing the league table off just to get a frame of reference here, just looking at the goal differences down that end of the league, you had Dundee going down on -47, St Mirren just scraping up by the skin of their balls on -32, Hamilton on a bank-busting -47, and then one place above them, Livingston, on -2.
Tremendous.
Which is a better goal difference than Norwich City finished 3rd in the Premier League with in 1994. There's a stat for you. They were -3.
And the scary thing about that is, so they've lost Declan Gallagher, who's gone to Motherwell. They've lost Craig Halkett, who's gone to Hearts. Really could have aimed higher. That's a really shocking transfer from his agent's point of view. And they've lost Liam Kelly, who was one of the better goalkeepers in the league last season as well. So they've lost the core of that defensive unit. They've brought a few players in. Alan Lithgow still there. They've also lost a very useful midfield player in Sean Byrne and Dolly Menga, who was top banter up front.
Where did he go?
I have no idea.
I read this thing where he wanted to play for his national team, so I'm presuming he went back over. I'm not going to lie, I don't know where his national team is or whatever. It's not Scotland, I'll tell you that.
Sokovia, isn't it? I think he's from Sokovia.
I don't even know, but he was great up front. Like I remember he gave Rangers their first defeat last season. I remember that. I was just about to go on holiday, and it was literally a few days before it.
Dick, eh?
And I was already in holiday mode. I was sitting there with a wee can of beer, all excited, and then Dolly Menga pops up with the winner, and Rangers get beaten. I just remember Steven Gerrard standing there, just pitch side, going, I should have went to Derby, really. Should have. What am I doing here? But yeah.
Are you agree on that though, Livingston? Anybody else you could see being in serious danger? There are 1.5 spots to go down in Scotland, remember?
I don't know. I would have said, just as a kind of bolt from the blue, Kilmarnock, just to be controversial, but I think they will, once because I don't think your man's going to survive past Christmas. I think once he gets the bullet and they bring in a safe pair of hands who's used to managing in Scotland, they might survive. I think there's teams worse than them out of the gate. Livingston's not a bad shout because they were solid last season, but we've seen it before with them. Remember years ago, maybe going back over a decade, they had this solid season. They finished third. They looked great, and then it just
Nosedive.
Hamilton Ackies for me.
Hamilton are terrible.
I've got no basis for that whatsoever. Just looking at those numbers, unless they've strengthened a lot, they're in serious
St
trouble.
Mirren's an interesting one as well because they seem to be in a permanent state of turmoil, and they've just hired one of the great clowns of Scottish football, Jim Goodwin, former player of theirs, as manager. There'll be good entertainment this season, but they're trying to get Stevie May on loan, man who scored 2 goals last season, to solve their goal-scoring problems? Probably not.
Believe it or not, there are still Rangers fans, and this goes back to when we were in like League One and the Championship. There are still Rangers fans among us who believe, take a punt on Stevie May. Why wouldn't you?
It's a very quintessential had a good run in the SPFL name, Stevie May.
Yeah.
You could see somewhere down the line he's got like an 18-goal season just in his back catalogue.
He's got several.
Tucked either side of like 2 and 3 goal seasons.
One of my mates said to me, it was just like, when I said, well, why? Like, he hasn't done anything. He was like, he's got long hair.
He runs around a lot.
He looks tough.
Okay. Runs around a lot.
Rangers do have a good history of signing centre forwards with long hair.
We do.
I can name one, maybe.
Go for it.
What was he called? Your man used to play for Nacho Nova and Lovencrantz. He was a dick. What was he called?
Not Kanija?
No, I've
Purzo?
never heard him. Could be.
Dado Purzo?
Maybe.
Croatian?
Yeah, why not? Let's say that's just what I was thinking of. One final question I want to bring up because this is our first ever Scottish-focused podcast we've ever done on this channel, I think, in any capacity. The big question that always sort of looms around Scottish football, but predominantly gets asked by people who don't follow it, is the dominance of Celtic, 8 titles in a row now, is that killing that league? Is it killing that football association?
We'll have totally different perspectives. I'll let you go first.
Is it the biggest problem? Does somebody have to finally make that a more, I hate to use this term, but a more competitive league for it to improve?
Obviously, I'm wholly biased on this in terms of, like, when Rangers went out the league, I'm actually surprised that Celtic haven't won more trebles. But I will say this, when you look at some of the other clubs, because it's undeniable that Aberdeen have improved, Kilmarnock have improved. Dundee United, I thought they would improve, and they've imploded completely.
There's always one, isn't there?
Yeah, like I honestly thought they played us in the Cup shortly after we went down into the 3rd Division and hammered us 3-0. And I remember thinking, because they had a good squad at that time, and I remember thinking, they might be one of the ones that come up a level in our absence. Never really happened for them, but you can't deny that many clubs have improved. I do think that it's a wee bit false that Celtic have won 8 in a row, I have to say. Not that there's really been any challenge for them, but I do think that guys like Scott Brown...
Says there, 8.
Yeah, I know they have.
I thought I'd double check.
I know they have, but...
Do you mean to paint a false picture of their dominance?
Yeah, I think obviously I wasn't alive in the 60s when they won 9 in a row, although it feels like it. And I was alive when Rangers won 9 in a row. There was some, I guess, like, Andy, you're going to know more than me. Like, in the 90s when Rangers were winning 9 in a row, did you feel like it was a bit boring and just...
It was hard because I was like in my early teens and so forth. So I had a completely different perspective on football and so forth. But it was always the thing, like, you went into the season, the best you were hoping for was finishing 3rd and so forth. These days, to be honest, my focus, especially when it comes to Scottish football, is more on the little moments of stupidity that go on throughout the season. So I'm not too bothered personally. I'd obviously love to see a future where, like, Aberdeen can break through and all this. But the economy of the game is such that it's just never going to happen, really. Celtic's, I believe their wage budget is something like 10 times as high as ours. Yeah. When you have those resources, you have access to better this, that, and the next thing. Obviously, it's not as simple as having the most money, but
But it certainly doesn't hurt, does it?
It's a big part of the equation. So the Celtic and their quest for Terry Monroe, to me, is... I don't necessarily... It doesn't really wrangle me in any way because I just want to see fun, man. I just want to see Scott Brown being a dick.
Well, I'm so glad you've brought that up, Andy, because we said we couldn't let this podcast go without bringing up a number of the great reasons why you should actually watch Scottish football, because as we always say here at What Culture, bad football is much, much better than good football. Yep. Would you like to run us through some of your personal highlights?
So yeah, this is just from the past few weeks, so early rounds of the League Cup and the friendlies, and there's just a nice little sample of the sheer mayhem that makes Scottish football so beautiful. So of course, Kilmarnock versus Connaskey, getting knocked out of Europe by these minnows, who the Queen's Park manager before the game predicted Killy would smash 10-0. Very good. Shay Logan, Aberdeen's controversial fullback, complaining vociferously on Twitter about, I said that word wrong, about A train journey gone wrong. He's on this train from Manchester to Edinburgh. He's swearing, he's effing and jeffing at this poor person on the end of the customer service. It's not good enough. He got the wrong train company. Making a complete... He didn't do this in private either, did he? He did it on Twitter. Maybe he wasn't swearing, but he was getting very annoyed. Celtic's club shop selling Celtic scooters, right? Little kid scooters.
Push ones.
And Celtic pillows. Hearts club shop, following up from last season's fake Lego bus, selling dog bow ties. So there you go.
It's a niche market, but
Well, you know what they say, give a dog a jambone.
Here's my two favourites. Livingston, of course, playing the Tony Macaroni Arena.
Yes.
Jovially known as the Spaghetti Hat among Scottish football fans. For the advert for their away kit, hashtag Spaghetti Hat along the back on their own bloody kit. And of course, how could we forget?
How could we go without reporting on
For
this?
the boys, the Challenge Cup draw, decked out in Tunnock's caramel wafer regalia. With a Tommy Tunnock, I assume, right there.
Tommy Tunnock. That's what they call him.
You'll love to see it. This is the crap that makes Scottish football so good. It doesn't matter that, the games are a bit dull and everyone's playing hoofball and all this stuff and this guy's got sent off and he's missed a sitter. It's the banner.
Alfredo Morelos, that's your contribution to this, isn't it?
Exactly. He missed more games than he played last season, I think.
And still finished top
Here's
scorer.
an interesting thing.
Still scored 50 goals.
James Tavernier said that Rangers, he got together with Steven Gerrard and they are implementing some kind of heavy fine for Rangers players who do get suspended. And he said it's not, this just shows you the world that footballers live in. Tavernier said it's not, a small amount of money like 2 or 3 grand. It's quite a large portion of their wages. So I'm led to believe, say Morelos does get sent off stupidly for, basically elbowing Scott Brown in the face. Like he's a pro wrestler. If he does get sent off or something like that, he will pretty much be fined a week's wages. I don't know how that'll work with someone like him because I get the feeling that he's quite a kind of hothead who will take it personally and think the world's against him and will end up selling them to China for like 30 grand.
As we all know from Football Manager as well, you have to be really, really sure before you go slightly down from issue warning to fine 1 week's wages because that could be, there might be no coming back from that with them.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's one of the many things that make Scottish football great. And this is one of the many things that make What Culture Football great. So let us know what you made of it in the comments below. Don't forget to tell all your friends that we do all this. Please, God, it's so lonely next to all these channels with millions and millions of subscribers. But my thanks to both Andy Murray. Say goodbye, Andy. Where can they get you on Twitter?
Yeah, you can get me on Twitter at Andy H. Murray.
Jamie, same question.
You can get, I don't know if they'd want to follow me actually because the only Twitter account I have is a wrestling one.
Me too, really.
So, but mine's a wee bit different. It's a wee bit more... give me a follow anyway. Give me a abuse. At Top Class Kennedy.
Wonderful. You get us all at What Culture FC, and I am, of course, at Adam Clery, Clery. But in the meantime, thank you all so much for watching. This has been What Culture Football, and we will see you soon.